Secretary Mattis, as we were discussing, you've just gotten back from Korea. Just right before this time today, you were at the DMZ and you said North Korea has accelerated the threat that it poses to its neighbors in the world through its illegal and unnecessary missile and nuclear weapons program. Well, today North Korea announced that it's going to be launching more, quote, satellites into space. And I'm just wondering if these satellite launches simply just another way for North Korea to test ballistic missiles under the guise now of a space program.
The application of technology is by and large the same, sir.
And Secretary Tillerson, I want to switch a little bit to what I see happening in terms of recent confrontations between the government of Iraq and the Kurdistan regional government. I'm very concerned about the Christians and the minority communities in the disputed territories that are being impacted by this. There have been recent media reports of 700 to 1,000 Christian families forced to flee their homes in Telskaf, a Christian town about 19 miles north of Mosul. Many of these Iraqi Christians recently just were able to return to their home, to their villages after ISIS had forced them out of the area. So could you spend a little time explaining what are you hearing from Christian leaders in these communities and what the U.S. is doing to ensure the Christian and other vulnerable minorities are being protected?
Senator, well, the good news is they're trying to get back to their homes, their villages, their traditional homes that they fled when ISIS entered the area. And many of their villages have been spared because the fighting did not occur there. We've been in direct contact with Christian leaders in those communities who are concerned that this conflict between Kurdish Peshmerga forces and Iraqi central government forces not be fought out in their villages, and as a result they have pulled their forces out. Prime Minister Abadi has ensured that his forces stay out of those villages, and I think, to my knowledge, the Kurdish forces have pulled out of those villages as well. So we have direct engagement with local leaders of those communities and Christian leaders that are trying to bring those populations back.
Yeah, thank you. Secretary Mattis, earlier this month there were violent clashes between the Iraqi security forces and the Kurdish Peshmerga in northern Iraq. The media reports indicated that the Iraqi government had moved forces into the disputed areas and the region of Kurdistan. So I'm wondering what impact does the fighting have on our efforts of the U.S.-led international coalition against ISIS in terms of the ability to move military equipment and supplies to allied forces in Iraq and in Syria?
Senator, the fighting has disrupted and delayed some of those movements of our equipment, logistics support, ammunition, for example. But I would point out that the Iraqi forces moved into areas short of the 2004 Green Line. And as a result, although there were some firefights along there, Secretary Tillerson has been engaged diplomatically. We always lead diplomatically on all of our efforts, and those have been successful. And Prime Minister Abadi has, in effect, been able to hold things under control, make certain none of the militias are creating more problems as the Kurds sort out their political situation in Erbil.
Thank you. And in terms of moving first diplomatically, if I could, Secretary Tillerson, turn to Pakistan. August 21st, President Trump gave a primetime address to announce his strategy for Afghanistan. He said a pillar of that strategy was, as he said, to change the approach and how to deal with Pakistan. You briefly discussed this issue while you were traveling in the region last week. You said that you have given to Pakistan, you said, I think, certain expectations we have of their government. You went on to say that you were attempting to put in place a mechanism of cooperation through information sharing and action to be taken to begin to deny these organizations the ability to launch attacks. So could you talk a little bit about what is the change in the approach to Pakistan and maybe some of the expectations that you've articulated for the Pakistani government that you could share with the committee in terms of what this cooperation is going to look like?
Well, I can share some broad contours, and if there's an interest in more detail, we might need to do that in a closed hearing. But the conversation with the Pakistani government is for them to recognize that they will be one of the greatest beneficiaries of a successful peace process in Afghanistan. Pakistan lives with two very unstable borders, one with Afghanistan, one with India. And our message to them is you have to begin to create greater stability inside your country, and that means denying safe haven to any of these organizations that launch attacks from your territory. So we are going to enter into an effort to have greater sharing of certain intelligence information. The Pakistanis have indicated if we provide them information, they will act. We're going to have to test that, give them an opportunity to do so. And so what will change is that Pakistan will find it in their interest to begin to disassociate these long-standing relationships that have developed over time with certain terrorist organizations, the Haqqani Network, the Taliban, inside of Pakistan, which may have served their purpose for stability once upon a time, but they no longer serve that purpose. And it's up to Pakistan, I think, to think about their longer-term stability and their future by changing that relationship with these organizations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your leadership and your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.